you have a stochastic process, you have stationary time increments, in other words, they're all the same length, and you have the Markovian property. So the next state is only influenced by the current state, not previous states. Now we're going to talk state classifications. So, two states, and we say a state is accessible from another state if you can get to that state from the first state. So in this case, you say 1 is accessible from 0. So if you were to draw this, now 0 is accessible from 1. And now 0 is accessible to itself. 1 right now is not accessible to itself the way this is drawn. So we have accessible states, and then we say they communicate if you can get from one state to the other and back in some number of steps. So if you can get from state 0 to state 1 and from state 1 to state 0 in some number of steps, they communicate. Let's add state 2. So now you can get from state 0 to state 1 to state 0. You can get from state 0 to state 2. You can get from state 1 to state 2 via state 0. So all of these states communicate with each other. If you were to do this, now you can't get from 2 back to either of the other 2. So 2 does not communicate with the other 2. 2 is accessible from 1 and 0, but the states do not communicate. Now, you have a class. A class is a group of states that communicate with each other. So in this case, we have two classes. We have this class, because 0 and 1 communicate, and we have that class, because 2 only communicates with itself. You can only get from 2 to itself. So, note, a class can have only one state in it. That's possible. Now, in this case, 2 is what's called an absorbing state. Okay, you can have an absorbing state, but not necessarily an absorbing class. Absorbing state is like the end of the line. You can have a process, let's say we're talking about number of fish in the fish bowl. Maybe eventually they all die. We get down to 0 live fish. That would be an absorbing state, unless we restocked it, but that would be a different situation. Now, in this case, this class is what's called transient. So a transient class is one where once you've left it, you can't get back. There is 0% chance of coming back into this class. You can also have single states that are transient. So let's say we have state 3. So if you go from state 3, if you leave state 3, you go to state 1, you're never going back to state 3. So state 3 is transient. In this case, 3 is also going to be its own class. It actually doesn't even communicate with itself. So transient class, absorbing state, also its own class.